You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. Over the past few months, the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra has reconnected with both audiences and performers through their spring and summer festival. This next concert, which premieres online tonight, welcomes back the great violinist and MCO guest artist in residence, Aisslinn Nosky, along with the newcomer to the organization, flutist Claire Chase. A MacArthur Genius and prestigious Avery Fisher Prize winner, the soloist, collaborative artist, educator, curator, and advocate for new and experimental music has joined me for a conversation. Claire Chase, welcome to Winnipeg's Classic 107.
Happy to be here.
Well, I'm just so delighted that you get to make your MCO debut tonight, and you get to do it alongside Aisslinn Nosky. How cool is that?
Well, Aisslinn is the best. She's absolutely extraordinary and a dear friend, and I just one of the most inspiring musicians walking the earth right now.
Well, can we talk more about your friendship? I mean, the MCO has been billing this as a real coup, and I feel like even that is an understatement. To put it plainly, you're both such a big deal. You and she. I guess I'm wondering, how in Winnipeg did we get so lucky that the two of you came together for a performance?
Well, I feel lucky to be involved in this. Aislinn and I connected at the Banff Center for Arts and Creativity 4 years ago,
Hmm.
and hit it off, and started a musical collaboration that's taken a bunch of different forms. Aislinn is, of course, known as her rock star of the Baroque and early classical repertory, but she is also an incredible new and experimental musician.
Hmm.
So we kind of met musically in our different worlds. She brought me over to the side of 18th and 19th century music in a way that I haven't really explored that music since I was in school. But I've privately been, I think, an 18th century flute music junkie,
Oh,
even though
no
I'm
way.
out in the world, promoting and commissioning and creating a lot of experimental music. And I think on the other side, Aislinn was so open-minded about some of the new music that I introduced to her, and so we started putting together programs, also educational curricula that would foster a dialogue between early music and the newest of new music.
Can you tell us more about that dialogue? I mean, like you say, she known for her rock star persona as a hip player, a historically informed musician, and then you on the other side of things, as you say, commissioning all these new works. And I'm curious, like, not to make this too reductive or to make it sound like the beginning of a bad joke, but like, what happens when the two of you walk into a church in New York to record a concert to be broadcast here in Winnipeg? Where do you start in terms of a meeting of these musical minds?
It's just music. Honestly,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
walk
yeah,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
church and listen to each other and play. And whether we're playing something that's been played millions of times, or whether we're playing something that's brand new that we're playing for the first or the second or the third time, I think musically we're all aiming for the same experience, which is to feel as if it's being sculpted anew, to feel as if we are experiencing it anew and we're offering it to the listeners with that freshness and vulnerability and danger that comes with a first performance. And this is what I love so much about the performance practice that Aislinn is a champion of, the hip performance practice. Um, it, as a person who plays experimental music, I hear Aislinn play Von Hall or Haydn, and it sounds like contemporary music. It sounds like it's being made for the absolute first time. And that's what I look for in a performance of music of any era. And so when we walked into that church, it was we just pulled out our implements, our axes, her fiddle, my flute, and we made music. And I really don't distinguish between the musics that we make.
Yeah, so often we box things, right? We put them into a category, being like, well, I'm a Baroque player, so that's what I do. But it's so much more than that. And I think what's very clear to me as just someone who really enjoys what you both do, is this sense of discovery that you both bring, whether it's rediscovering old works or sharing new ones for the very first time. In both cases, it sounds like the ink is still wet on the page in what you're doing, which is just so cool. And it's like you say, it's what we want of music, isn't it?
It's what we live for.
Yeah, it really, really is. So let's talk a little bit about the program that the two of you put together. I guess, can we start back in the Baroque? I mean, you said going back to the other side. I don't want to call it the dark side. I mean, I work at a classical music radio station after all. But there's music of Bois Martier and also of Telemann. Tell us about these two works and what it was like recording them.
Well, the Bombardier is an absolute gem. And Aislinn found this and sent it to me, and I've just fallen in love with this music. Bombardier is, of course, prolific composer of flute music, so he's beloved by flutists. But interestingly, he was also one of the first composers to resist the patron model, right? I mean, he obtained this license for engraving music in 1724 or 5, and he actually became a businessman,
Mm-hmm.
and refused the antiquated and earlier models of the music business. So this is a fascinating and quirky guy. Apparently he was a bit of a rambler, and was very unfocused, and so he was prohibited from conducting his own works, which was, of course, customary at the time. And you can hear this eccentricity in the music. I mean, there's just incredible elegance and nuance and just beauty for the sake of beauty in that wonderful French Baroque way. But he's also a bit of a trickster, and you can hear his quirkiness especially in the fast movements. The piece is an absolute joy to play, and I feel like every time I play this music with Aislinn, I feel like a beginner in
Yeah.
the best way and the most ecstatic way.
Uh,
I feel like I'm discovering this music newly, even though it's been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, it's been around for a little while. And then in the other work in the Telemann, it not, I mean, like you say, the Bois Martier, I mean, just a composer beloved of flutists. The Telemann, on the other hand, this isn't a flute part. You're performing a violin part on the flute. That's pretty cool. Who did this? Was this your arrangement or something that you guys picked up?
No, it's totally customary for these pieces to be
Yeah.
played by two similar instruments.
Yeah, the instruments that were available at the time, right? It was
Yeah, so
who's
there
available to
are
play to entertain.
exactly, and it's
Yeah.
music of friendship. This is not concert music per se. This is music. Let's get together and have some beers and read this down. That's the
Mhm.
vibe of this music. So of course, there've been arrangements for two oboes and for oboe and fiddle and for two fiddles and for flute and viol and two viols. So it's really not very unusual for us to take this up as two treble instruments.
Yeah, and so I think people are really going to enjoy it. I mean, I've heard a little teaser of it. In fact, I played some just earlier in the week, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. Now we skip forward a couple of centuries now into some music of the Brazilian composer Marcos Balter. This is music that you premiered? Is that right?
Yeah, I commissioned this piece
Yeah.
in 2013, and it actually was a seed. It was the first little kind of etude for what became an evening length work by
Hmm.
Marcos for flute and a large ensemble, a kind of 21st century Greek chorus. So it's a little miniature. It's about 3 minutes long, and it plays with the tone of a single wine glass. So Aislinn expertly rubs this wine glass and plays this pure pitch against which the flute sings. And a very interesting thing happened, kind of a miraculous thing happened in the recording that we did at St. Ignatius Church. The church bells went off.
No way.
And I think that I don't, maybe they were being tested, maybe someone was playing a trick on us during our recording session, but they went off not at any recognizable time and with no discernible pattern. They went off at like 6:17 p.m. And they just rang and rang and rang. And you'll see the expressions on our faces as we look up and think, should we stop? Should we do another take? What's going on? But interestingly, the pitches of the bells were so resonant with the pitch content of the melody at that particular moment, and then the rhythm that the bells took on, which, as you'll hear, is quite random, and there are pauses in between. It stops and starts. It actually ended up being this wonderful third partner. So a duo turned into a trio with church bells, and we just decided to do that take and that take only, and share that with the audience. And the composer loved it too. Now I think church bells are going to be in the piece for perpetuity.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. I mean, it's a work with a provocative sort of title, a very descriptive title, Alone, for flute and wine glass, which sounds like a Friday night through the pandemic that we've experienced for the last year and a half. But what I wanted to ask you is, I mean, like you've been such a commissioner of new music and such a promoter of it, and I mean, just everything that you've done has been so groundbreaking, and you've opened the doors for so many composers. But with this work that was premiered back and commissioned back in 2013, I wanted to ask, how does it stay new? How does it stay fresh? What's that feeling? But I think you just answered that. Each performance is so unique, and this one particularly special with bells ringing. Well, I mean, it's just part of it now, I guess, right?
Totally. And, one of the ways that music always tastes music, we're responding to our environments.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what was so special about being able to be in a church and to play with another human being, not over a Zoom screen for the first time in nearly a year.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to feel one another's energies and vibrations in the space and also play the space as an instrument. And in this case, what would have been a duo became a trio because the space itself decided to announce itself not just acoustically, but with this wonderful melodic and rhythmic intervention. So what a great way to return to playing in a concert hall, to have the concert hall actually improvise and sing back at you.
Improvise, sing back, and say like, hey, thanks for doing what you're doing here. I approve of what's going on and I want to be a part of it too. And I think that all of us, we the audience, even though this is still a virtual recital, it's still something that I'm sure will be very tangible to us. We'll be able to feel it, and we, I know, can't wait to welcome you to Winnipeg. You were to be here in January 2021, and you say walking into a space and working with a musician again. The thing that we keep hearing from musicians, and I'm sure something that you've heard many a time already, but to be able to breathe with your fellow players, to return to that space and be in the same space without the lag, without the hiccups. It's like a sort of rebirth. It's like a new opportunity to create music. And so we're so thrilled that you've done this for us here in Winnipeg and for yourselves as well. Claire, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me at Classic 107 today.
Such a pleasure. Thanks.